talk about this. Joining me now are Angela Irving, who's host of Black in a Box, and Jack Rowlett, who is a political commentator with Young Voices UK. Jack, let me start off with you. Your feelings about this.
Well, I think it's an absolutely appalling thing to have said. It's a deeply racist thing to have said. And I think the Conservative Party shouldn't be taking any more money from this man. I think there is a problem in that we're kind of spotlighting one man here. And I think that's something that we really need to deal with, because, you talk about it in your intro there, the fact that kind of that sort of hate and abuse, it's kind of normalized. And certainly for MPs, they're dealing with, death threats, abusive messages, threats to their safety every single day. And actually, it's only really spotlighted when someone very rich does it in this case, rather than actually focusing on the overall issue. So I think that's the real problem. And I think
what is the overall issue? Are we talking about racism, or are we talking about death threats? Or when you say the overall issue, what is the overall issue in your mind?
Well, I think there's a big issue around MPs' safety, and MPs' safety, that threat will manifest in different ways. I know, for MPs of colour, they face a lot of racist threats. Women MPs will face sexist threats. There are also kind of generalized politically motivated threats to lots of different MPs. And I think that's the overall issue that I think really needs to be dealt with, because we've tolerated a level of abuse towards people in Parliament for too long. And I think this is part of a longer trend, a longer unacceptable trend, and we shouldn't just be focusing on this one man.
So you don't think the fact that he said, when you see Diane Abbott on the TV, you're just like, you just want to hate all black women because she's there. You don't think the fact that he's highlighted that her being a black woman, you don't really think that figures?
Oh, no, it does. It's racist abuse. Of course it is. And that's what I mean by the threats towards MPs. It manifests in different ways depending on what MP we're looking at. And I know Diane Abbott gets some of the most abuse of any MP. So it's absolutely relevant and important. And that racist abuse that lots of MPs have to deal with, not just Diane Abbott, is something we need to crack down on and needs to be dealt with. It's an aspect of that overall threat to MP safety. I'm not dismissing it or saying it's irrelevant at all. Yeah. But that kind of abuse can manifest in different ways.
Thank you. Angelo, your thoughts on this?
I think it's really important that we are able to focus on one thing at a time. It is okay to make the point quite forcefully that what Frank Hester said was racist. I think Jack is correct in that focusing on the one man is not going to solve racism. But I think that I find it slightly difficult as a black man, and I think it would be even more difficult again for black women to say that this should be dealt with within the context of abuse of MPs, because there is a context and there is a political context. In the last 8 years, we have had 2 MPs murdered. But if we talk specifically about women of colour, the Foresight Society reported that 75% of women of colour have experienced racism in the workplace. There are 0 black female CEOs in the FTSE 100. Diane Abbott, in the run-up to the 2017 election, received nearly half of all of the abuse directed towards women MPs, including more than all of the Conservative and Scottish National Party female MPs combined. It seems to be that it's okay to say that we can deal with this as part of a broader issue when it comes to the treatment of a black woman. But I would argue that is not going to help the situation moving forward. We should ask ourselves some serious questions in this country, why the Tory party's biggest donor felt absolutely comfortable to make these comments. And he didn't just say that about Diane Abbott, he had some awful comments about some of his Chinese workers. And getting the Tory party to give that money back will make a powerful statement, but I do agree with Jack that it will not solve the issue.
Now, we've got a couple of callers that I want to hear. We've got Siobhan, who is in Bournemouth. Siobhan, what did you want to say about this?
Diane Abbott has been ridiculed in the media for years. I mean, when she went up to Cambridge, there weren't many sort of black working class women in the class where she was, and she's the first female black elected member of Parliament. This lady should have a statue put up for her. But even like Fiona Bruce on Question Time, if you remember that she was making jokes to the audience before Diane Abbott came on. So, and all the abuse that she's had online has been really minimised, as though, well, that's Diane Abbott and she kind of deserves it. And as a white woman, if I tweet support to Diane Abbott, I will get a load of abuse. So it makes people scared to support her.
What can I ask you? If you tweet something, you say if you tweet something in support of Diane Abbott, you'll get abuse.
Yes.
What kind of abuse? What is the thrust of that abuse?
Well, it doesn't seem. Often it doesn't seem like it's real people. It's like, you know, but it's I'm some kind of idiot because Diane Abbott is an idiot, and I won't get the vile death threat she gets, but, you know, it just makes me sad because there's other female black figures like Dr. Shola, and you get the same thing with her. So if I said something to a white commentator, I don't get the same level of pushback that if I say something in support of a black woman.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you so much. And we've got Jamie in Newcastle. Jamie, hello. What did you want to say about this?
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. So you had Diane Abbott sitting there listening to everyone within Parliament have their say on a situation that she was the subject matter. She bobbed up and down 46 times. And predominantly what you had was, as Parliament is full of, white male privilege, giving their opinions on what was racist and something like that. And not a single one. And after the event, there's a lot of people have come out and said it was disgraceful that the Speaker didn't invite her to speak, even though there's precedent to allow that to happen. Yeah. But none of those people that were making their comments and making their views known took the opportunity to turn around to the Speaker and say, excuse me, Speaker, the lady in question is sitting at the back, is bobbing up and down and wants to have something to say. Don't you think that you should actually bring her into this conversation? They felt that their opinion on the racism that was directed at her, their opinion was more valid than the person's subject that was put the subject matter in that. And I think that was quite telling with regards to Parliament. That, you know, we all know that Diane Abbott is the most abused parliamentarian in the UK. And she's made faux pas. Her maths hasn't been great at times. And she is destroyed over it. Yet it appears that what we have is, they said, oh, well, he's apologised. He should. No, what he apologised for was being rude. He didn't apologise for being racist. You know, his comments were racist. His comments were inflammatory. His comments were dangerous. And for the Tories to even argue over the fact that they're not giving this money back, I think shows a lot towards what their priorities are.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We got another message before I come back to our guest. Hi, Trisha. The remarks made about Diane Abbott were vile, and by accepting the money, Sunak is complicit in it. I think racial and religious hatred should be called out and condemned and not tolerated. But as a white woman, I have to say that there isn't an equal playing field. I find white privilege and white supremacy comments equally offensive. And that's from Rachel. Another one from Diane Abbott. I'm a staunch conservative voter up until now, but I am utterly appalled and distressed at what happened to Diane Abbott. Coming back to you, Jack, those our callers have made really valid comments. Do you not think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not disputing the nature of the abuse, the fact that it was an awful thing to do, or the fact that the Tory response to it has been pretty dreadful. I think, you know, in taking ages to acknowledge that it was racist abuse, they've kind of shamed themselves, really, the Conservative Party. But I think there is an issue in terms of, we've got this one guy, this Hester, the donor. Whether that money is given back or not is sort of irrelevant, because it doesn't mean that Diane Abbott or anybody else isn't going to keep facing racist abuse. it doesn't mean that they're not going to be having kind of threats to their safety. But that's what needs to be dealt with. And I think that there is an issue where, well, either this money's going to be given back or not. People will make their own mind up about whether that makes them less likely to vote Conservative or not. But it doesn't solve the underlying problem. And I think, you know, this story will eventually blow over. But actually, the underlying abuse, the underlying racism, that won't change. And that's where the focus needs to be. And I think actually, you know, we've had a lot of focus on Hester, and actually it's right to point out that Diane Abbott didn't get a chance to give her view in Parliament herself. So I think that's wrong as well.